What up, Screen Fiends? I'm GB, and you're tuned in to Headz TV, where we like to discuss all the wonderful things appearing on your movie and your TV screens. Alright, in this episode, I'm going to give my review of Preacher Season 1, Episode 1, which is just titled Pilot. There's no actual name to it. I hate when shows do that. Just throw a name in there. Like, you don't have to call the episode Pilot once it airs. Just call it that when you show it to the network. Anyway. Alright, so, the reason why I'm making this video, the show came out last year, but the Season 2 is about to air in June. I think on the 25th. Yeah, the day before my birthday, I'm pretty sure. And, I like the show. I think it's really good. I read a little bit of the source material. I haven't really gotten too deep into it. Once the show started, I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to read any further. I'd rather the show unravel the mystery than the book. So, yeah. All right. So, Preacher. It's on AMC, and I believe it comes on Monday nights. It may be Sundays. No, it's Monday nights. Yeah, because Sundays is Fear. All right, so now the synopsis for the first episode is really just a broad synopsis of the whole series. So it's not really explaining this episode, but I'm going to read it to you anyway. That way, if you're watching this just to get acquainted with the show, that maybe you want to watch it, it doesn't really spoil anything, but it gives you the gist of it. So the synopsis, like I said, for pretty much the whole season, a preacher heads out on a journey to combat the supernatural evil that just decimated his Texas hometown. Now, in the comic, that's the synopsis for the first issue. But that is not what happens in the first episode of the show. The first episode of the show is really world building, character introduction, that sort of thing. Now, this show was created by, and the first episode at least was directed by Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen. Now, I don't know, you know Seth Rogen, obviously, but Evan Goldberg is his writing partner. If you've ever seen the movie Superbad, Evan Goldberg wrote that movie. And that movie is about him and Seth Rogen when they were kids. So, if you look at the two main characters, their names are Evan and Seth. And look at Jonah Hill. He looks like Seth Rogen in a way in that movie. And Seth Rogen makes a cameo in that. But just to give you a little background. But now this movie is not like a comedy like that. Yes, it's funny. There's many moments of levity, many moments of humor, and even some of the more violent or disturbing things are handled with a sense of levity to them. I'm not saying that it's all funny, but it's light. It's not so dark in its delivery of even the darkest of things. Alright, so we follow Preacher, whose name is Jesse Custer. He's played by Dominic Cooper. You'll know him from the MCU, the Marvel movies, if you've seen them. He's the young Howard Stark from Captain America. He was in a couple other things. He was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a little bit, Agent Carter. Yeah, he played Howard Stark, Tony's dad. So he plays Jesse Custer, and he plays him he plays him the way I would imagine from reading the book, but when you're watching it at first, you don't know what to make of it. By the end of the episode, you see where he's going with it. So it's not a knock on him at all. He's just a very strange, mysterious character, and you don't really get a feel for him until the last 10 or 15 minutes of the pilot, of the first episode. So, and then we have Cassidy, who is played by an actor, Joseph Gilgan. Now, he looks familiar. I didn't look him up or anything. I really should have. He looks really familiar to me. So, if you know who he is, just put it in the comments down below. But I'm pretty sure I know him from somewhere. Now, he plays Cassidy. And Cassidy is one of my favorite characters. I love all three of the main characters. All three of them, to me, are good characters, well-rounded, and they're interesting to the point where I have to know what happens next. And I really want to know, like, backstory, right? So Cassidy is a centuries-old vampire. I'm not spoiling anything for you. You get that in, like, the first 5 minutes of the show. And he's really badass and really kick-ass. he's Irish also, so he's got that accent, he's got that slang, that lingo, that swagger that many of the Irishmen have there. And then finally, in our last main character, we have Ruth Negga as Tulip. Ruth Negga was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a little bit. Forgot her name on there. She was the girl with the flower dress. She ended up being an Inhuman, whatever. Spoiler alert. She was also in a movie called Loving. You've seen her in a couple of things, I'm sure. She's a fine actress, in all senses of the word fine. And I love the way she plays this role. In the comic, Tulip comes across as a little victim-y. Even though she's still kind of tough and kind of badass, she comes across as very a victim. And this Tulip on the show, by no means comes across as a victim. The total opposite. She is awesome. Now, here's something I want to just say about the show before you go and watch it or get really into it. It's over-the-top action, okay? So it's, I don't know what, like, it's like Kill Bill type of action where the blood is a lot. When certain people get hit or kicked, it's a real thud and they go back a bit. Not as bad as Kung Fu where people are flying all over the place. Unless you're fighting the vampire, which makes sense because he's the strongest of them. So he kicks you, you go flying. But when it comes to the human combat aspect of it, it's really brutal, really fast-paced. I loved it. I wish there was more of the action. It's throughout the first season. I watched the whole first season last year when it came on. This is a second watch I'm doing now to make these videos. So, I remember saying to myself throughout the season, there is action sprinkled throughout the whole season. But nothing compared to the way we get like 4 or 5 action scenes in the first episode. Every episode is not like that, okay? Just want to warn you ahead of time. But the story is intriguing enough. The characters are interesting and likable enough. There's enough mystery surrounding it to really make you want to get through it, even though certain episodes may be lighter on the action. All right. So here's what we're dealing with now, and I don't want to tell you in this video what the supernatural forces are. I really want you to watch the show if you haven't seen it and let it unfold. But as I do, because I'm going to do every episode of Season 1 before Season 2 starts. So as I'm doing the episodes, I'm going to start talking about the supernatural entities and what we're dealing with in the show beyond earthly things of earthly understanding, yeah, so look, it's a good show. The first episode is going to be a little off-putting. There's one scene in particular. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to do the spoilers anyway. If you're watching this, you must have seen it. So spoilers from this point on, but the video's almost over anyway. There's one scene where Tulip is in combat in a car. And it is an awesome scene, and I love almost all of it. But then at the end, she kills one guy by, like, jamming a husk of corn down his throat because she's driving through a cornfield. And I didn't like that. Those types of moments in something that's supposed to be played off kind of real, really bother me. I'm usually able to suspend more disbelief with things like that in a supernatural show where things are going on that we obviously don't go on in the real world. But when it's a human-on-human combat, it reminds me of the movie Shoot 'Em Up when Clive Owen kills a dude. I almost said Clive Barker. When Clive Owen kills a dude with a carrot, it's like that to me, and it's like, why'd you do it? So, but other than that, I have no complaints about the first episode. So, so yeah, the first episode, we just get to know each character. We get to know Jesse and who he is, a little bit of his backstory, and a few hints at where his story is gonna go in the future of the series. And then, we learn more. We don't really learn about Tulip's past in the first episode. We just learn that she has a connection with Jesse, and we learn that she is hella badass. She does so many badass things in the first episode. It's like almost every scene she's in is a badass scene in a way. I mean, everything from making a makeshift bazooka. Yes, a makeshift bazooka. Watch it. To killing the guy with an ear of corn, to planning out some sort of heist or robbery or crime while painting her nails, to standing in front of an open window in broad daylight, butt naked. Like, she's just gangsta. I love her. I love her character. And then Cassidy, we don't get any backstory in the first episode, but we're privy to the fact that he is badass, super gangsta, somebody you do not want to mess with, and a vampire. All in that first scene, which takes place on an airplane, and it is insane. I love it. All the acting on the show is on point in the first season. The writing is all on point. It does drag a little bit here and there, but if you're paying attention and making sure you're keeping yourself engaged in the show, it'll be an enjoyable experience for you. And if ever you're watching the first season and you find yourself like, I don't know if I'm really liking this, stick through it. Remember what came before it, and remember what could possibly happen next. I really enjoy this show. Will I say that Preacher is one of my favorite shows? No. It's only one season, and I believe it's only 8 episodes. It might be 10. I'm going to check right now while I have you here. But it's not a long season. Not like 16 or 20-something episodes. Nothing that ridiculous. It's actually 10 episodes long. So it's not so bad. 45 minutes, with no commercials an episode. Hour with commercials. And I think if you're a fan of AMC shows, Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, Walking Dead, if you're a fan of things like Sons of Anarchy, Spartacus from HBO, Stars, sorry HBO, sorry Stars. If you're a fan of those kinds of shows that are like action dramas, you'll like the show. It's got pretty much everything you can want, from good writing, solid writing anyway, really good action when it happens, a tad over the top, but if you know that going in, not so bad. Blood and violence and sex and, a little bit of profanity. It's definitely a show for adults. And really interesting characters portrayed well by the actors. So check it out. Preacher, season 1, episode 1, pilot. I honestly give it like almost a perfect score. I give it like a 4.7. Not quite a perfect score because, when shows are so shrouded in mystery, sometimes it's hard to give them a really good score on your first viewing without seeing the whole story in context. Because if you're confused or bewildered by the end of the episode, it loses something for you. So sometimes it pays to revisit. Like, in the context of the whole season, honestly, this is a 4.8, 4.9 episode. It's damn near perfect. But as a self-contained episode, it loses a little bit, I think, in translation. Or gains in translation. However that works. All right, that's it for this one. I'm done rambling. Sound off down below. If you've seen Preacher, let me know what you thought about season 1, episode 1, whatever. The show in general. If you want to talk the graphic novel, the comics, like I said, I didn't read the whole thing all the way through, but I read quite a bit of it, and I have a good knowledge of it, the whole story and all that. And always sound off on my videos. It helps me, tweak and fix and change or keep the same certain things. If you critique me, let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. The good, the bad, the ugly. Any criticism is a good criticism in my book. All right, that's it for this one. Again, you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks so much for watching. Always appreciate it. I will see you next time.